Hello, everyone. Vernon Wall here. He, him, his, your ACPA president. I think many of you know that I live in Washington, D.C. I've lived here for over 15 years. This is my home. I love the district. This morning, um, I woke up to the sound of helicopters um, above my apartment. And I actually went to bed hearing those same helicopters. Um, and I'll tell you, it's a little jarring and it's also a little surreal. And as a matter of fact, you could hear either sirens or helicopters as I record this message to you. Um, we are in challenging times, and I just wanted to take a moment to share a few things with you. First of all, I remember when I was a graduate student at Indiana University. Um, in my History of American Higher Education class, we talked about Bob Schaefer. Bob Schaefer was Dean of Students at Indiana University during the 1960s. And I believe two things I took from that conversation is one, that Bob Schaefer realized that history was being written in that moment. And he knew he was a part of it. And he knew higher education was a part of it. And I believe that he thought about how did he want to be remembered and how did he feel that higher education wanted to be remembered during this time. The second thing was I know that Bob Schaefer realized that college students typically are the first to challenge systems before others even realize the dynamics. It's really on our college university campuses where students really sort of are given the opportunity really to kind of see, what are some things that they feel that they want to actively change and be a part of. They and that's who we are as a campus community. We allow students to be in that space of exploring possibility. Um, when it comes to being actively involved in racial justice work, ACPA has a long history of being front and center. Um, we can talk specifically about our entities who continue to not only provide resources for the higher education community, but also provide a sense of community and support for our members, specifically the Pan African Network and the Coalition for Multicultural Affairs, both rich histories within ACPA. Um, so I'm thinking about, so what is the role of higher education during this time? First off, is to speak out and speak out and speak out and speak out more. We will support our entities as they do their great work, specifically, but not limited to our networks and our coalitions as they provide outreach and programming. We will use a racial justice and decolonization lens as we implement our strategic plan and revisit our governance structure. We will continue to provide professional development opportunities on racial justice, equity, inclusion, decolonization, white supremacy. Um, the ACPA To Go series continues to be amazing in terms of webinars offered for our members. You may have heard that over 1,000 people attempted to join a session that we were doing on Monday with the Washington Consulting Group on possibility during this time. It really and truly shows that ACPA members are looking for this, and we're going to provide it. A challenge that I have for those of us who are in senior student affairs leadership roles is to really understand that being able to effectively engage conversations on race, racism, anti-blackness, white supremacy, oppression is a skill. It's a skill that we must develop. Now, I know that there, as we think about maneuvering the landscape of higher education and moving into different positions, we know that there are some skills that we need in order to be successful, whether it be supervision, fundraising, working with alumni, budget development, policy. We know that those are skills we need to develop in order to be successful, and we work hard to make sure we present ourselves in ways in which we can really engage our staffs when we are hired in those senior leadership roles. I just want to make sure that people realize that another skill is about this engagement during not only during this time but always, specifically around issues of inclusion. It needs to be seen as a skill. I think some people believe that we're just born with this ability to engage, or people believe that we're good people, and as a result, we can navigate this time that we're in, and we have been in, around race, racism, and inclusion and diversity. The reality is we've got to develop these skills, and we need to think about what it is for us individually. And many of us are doing that. I can speak volumes of people who are doing some amazing work on their college and university campuses in senior student affairs leadership roles. Absolutely. And some of us need to go back to school, specifically around these issues, because we need you, we need your leadership in those senior student affairs leadership roles. And just because you identify from a specifically marginalized identity doesn't mean you don't also need to develop those skills, because I know for me personally, that's continually my work. And it's continually our work in other areas that we develop, whether it be around fundraising, supervision. So we need to think of this similarly in terms of how can I continue to grow and develop in that way. I just want to make sure I mention too that there are two traps that I'm really challenging myself to stay away from during this time. And one is this narrative of what's worse, racism, COVID-19, which really makes no sense to me, I'm sorry. Both are horrific, not only to historically marginalized groups, but to our world and our country. But that's how white supremacy works. It wants us to pit one against the other. Don't do it. Don't fall into that. Both and. Keep the both and. Second, I know that the media continues to focus on men, specifically Black men, when we talk about violence in our community, but please don't allow that to erase Black women and Black trans folk who continue to be murdered in our community. It's extremely important. Once again, that's how white supremacy works. To my Black identified colleagues, the struggle continues to be real. As an association, we are with you, and we're holding you. And as Vernon, I'm with you, and I'm holding you. These are tough times for all of us. Please keep personal care front and center. Finally, when I was at our Capitol building here in Washington, D.C. on Saturday with thousands of protesters, I was struck by the number of college-age students and children that were in attendance. And I believe I knew that was going to be the case cognitively, but to visually see this was so powerful. So the next time you are facilitating a session on white privilege, or having a conversation in your office or virtually with a student about the dynamics of racial injustice, or listening to a group of students debate the ramifications of anti-Blackness, or you're with a group of colleagues who are trying to stumble their way through understanding and engaging in dialogues around race and racism, and you wonder, does what I do in student affairs matter? Am I truly making a difference? When this happens, I want you to think of that visual I mentioned earlier around protesters in front of the Capitol, or visuals that you have and experiences that you have of being involved in protests, or things that you've seen on television, and know that those are our current students, those are our former students, those are our future students, all demanding change, not for tomorrow, but for today. Today. Thank you.